Welcome to Management Live. WOBI's leading event, World Business Forum, arrives at Columbia for the first time with a lineup of leaders, thinkers, and doers specially tailored for the debut in Bogota. We've packaged the highlights of the event into a TV show to revive the best moments. Let's share the enthusiasm, energy, and inspiration that derives from learning the latest trends and best practices of the business world. So let's get into it. The first edition of World Business Forum, Bogota. For our first conference presentation, let's invite Tal Ben-Shahar, one of the world's leading experts on the science of positive psychology and happiness, whose class at Harvard on positive psychology was the most popular at the university. He'll discuss how leaders can create a positive environment to untap personal and organizational potential. Let's get inspired by him.
If we want to make progress in leadership, in research, we need to learn from the best people. If you think about it, usually the research that is done, whether it's the university in Bogota, or Boston, or Beijing, the research that is done in those universities always looks at the average. So it takes a representative sample of the population and asks, what do they do? And then they describe, they create a narrative, a story around what the average does. Now that's good, that's important, but Maslow says, not good enough. If we want to make progress, if we want our world to become a better place, our organizations, our families to become better places, we need to learn from what works best. There was a great deal of skepticism and rejection of Maslow's idea in 1954 as there is today. Why? Because people said, that sounds elitist. Learning from what works best, that was too close to World War II. And they said, we want democracy, we want the average, we don't want to be elitist. But think about it. Maslow's idea is not at all elitist. Let's say you want to study meditation, something that I'll talk about later. Will you go and study the average population of meditators? Will you go to the streets of Bogota and take a representative sample and study them? No. You would go off to the Himalayas and study the professional meditators. Learn from them. Or let's say if you wanted to study education, teaching, would you go to the average teacher? No, you would go to the best teacher. Or if you wanted to study relationships, would you go to the average relationship? You know, in 1859, the best book on relationships was published, 1859, by John Stuart Mill, a British philosopher. John Stuart Mill wrote a book about what relationships can be like. It's a book that transformed the world. It's one of the books that has brought about the feminist equality revolution. That book, talking about relationships, did not study the average relationship, because had he studied the average relationship, we would have had a master-slave relationship. Now, it may work for some people, for most people it doesn't. Rather, he studied one relationship. Not even a representative sample. One relationship, his own, which was extraordinary, the best. And with that, writing about his relationship, he transformed the world. One of the most important writers, bringing about equality. And the same with leadership. If you want to understand how we can make a difference in our organizations, you don't go and study the average, you go and study the best and create a story about that. When you combine strength and passions who do what managers who do what they do best every day are 38% more likely to be in high productivity business units. Second research, Most successful managers leverage strength and passions 6 times more often. Not a little bit more, but a lot more. But here is the tragedy of it all. 91% of managers are in jobs that don't leverage their strength and passions. This is a real tragedy, because this means that there is potential. This means that there is real potential to do good, to do great things in organizations, in families, in communities, in nations. And this potential is not realized, is not fulfilled, at least in part, because we do not focus on our strength. This does not mean ignore weaknesses. As Peter Drucker said, we need to manage our weaknesses and then focus on our strength. Manage our weaknesses so that they don't hurt us, don't prevent us from exercising our strength. And it's with these two questions: what are your strengths and what gives you strength? What are you good at and what are your passions? That we can fulfill much more of our individual potential as well as communal, organizational potential.
That was a great opening of the event. That sets the tone for what's coming next. What is that? The world of enchanted objects and the Internet of Things, explained by an authority in the field, David Rose. David is an instructor at the MIT Media Lab and the author of the recently published Enchanted Objects: Design, Human Desire, and the Internet of Things. Let's listen to him and discover a fascinating world of technology and much more.
We're taking so many photos, we're sharing so many photos, and that's what people's attention is focused on, is all of those photos. So it's like, this I think is going to be a big, big game changer for businesses today, for how we discover products and how we buy. So just to recap, how did we get here again? Like how did we get to this crazy world of social commerce? Well, here are the steps, if you remember them. The first one was cameras jumped into phones and gave us stories, gave us all this user-generated content that was so interesting to us that we're spending all of our time reviewing it. And then social networks became photo-sharing sites and focused all of our attention not on people's tweets, but on people's photos. We don't really worry about sharing all this stuff anymore because thanks to the telcos, they gave us low-cost data plans so we could just have massive amount of UGC or stories that our friends post that are shared online. And then computer vision comes along and says, we can make this all linkable. We can make this actionable, this UGC content. And then thanks to Amazon and IBM and Google, who are in the elastic cloud business, it becomes affordable to have a company that has 500 servers in the cloud. We didn't have to start a data center. We're just paying 6 cents per compute hour for a very, very fast machine in the cloud to basically interpret all of this content. So you get affordability at the scale of social. And then you get not only the volitional cameras, but the incidental cameras that we're wearing, that we're putting in our homes, that we're putting on nearly everything. I was just at Gillette the other day, and they said, we're thinking about a razor that includes a camera on its tip so it sees how well you're shaving, and you don't go over the same spot twice. Crazy, right? There are a lot of companies that are using these as a customer research tool as well, but you get these sort of vicarious experiences. And then the last linchpin is what's called affiliate business models, which I just told you, right? These are already plumbed. They're already in place. If you can direct traffic to somebody else's website and that incurs transactions, you get your God-given 5% of that. So my sort of hopeful point of view on this future is that these photos will change how we find customers, how we discover products and experiences, and ultimately how people shop and become inspired and buy. And that all of these social photo streams become actionable. And this is just one of the ramifications of the Internet of Things. So we're building custom classifiers. So if anybody wants to find trucks or SUVs or dogs and cats or ties. We just started working with a company who were classifying 16 different women's hairstyles to try to point them towards certain products. But I think that's sort of the interesting future, is a classifier store or a vision store where you can build your own stuff. And ultimately, I think it matters to this audience from a story perspective, because what behavioral economists have this idea called social proof, which is your friends do something, it's a tacit recommendation for you to do the same thing. And photos are things that we trust and things that we look at when taken by our friends. So I think this has a big ramification for marketing and advertising in the future. You know, one of the things I would do to experiment fast and cheaply is to use crowdfunding sites like Indiegogo and Kickstarter as a place to experiment. You know, there were companies like Time Warner that would do smoke tests for book series. Remember, they would like say, Time Warner announces the Old West book series, you know, and they would say in 10 volumes, it will be shipped to you in 12 weeks. And they wouldn't have done any work, and they would just say if anybody buys. And then if enough people were interested in the book series of the Old West, they would get on their horse and start writing it, you know, start writing, illustrating it. And I think companies can use Indiegogo and Kickstarter in the same way, right? They can say, what about if we did a product that had these features? Let's crowdsource the funding of that and just see what the reaction is. And if it's not resonating, we'll kill it. But it's a fast way to do market tests for IoT.
That was really amazing. Now let's meet Mohanbir Sawhney, a greatly recognized scholar, teacher, and consultant in business innovation, technology marketing, and new media. He'll teach us how to create great stories and use them to build great marketing strategies.
Now let's think about where all we can use stories. Where can we tell stories? Stories can be told for different purposes. They can be told to build an emotional connection with a brand. They can be used to communicate thought leadership for a company. They can also be told to inspire employees to promote the sense of community inside the organization. And they can be told to drive change. They can be told to repair your corporate image when you are in a crisis. So these are some of the ways in which you can apply stories. So 3 things you see in this chart. Understand why you want to tell the story, understand who you want to tell the story to, and understand the goal that you want. Do you want to inform people? Do you want to persuade them? Do you want to inspire them? So let's look at some examples. So in the case of Chevron is in the oil business. It's a dangerous business to be in because someday you're going to create an oil spill. And someday you're going to have a problem. It is also not a very environmentally friendly business to be in. So what they do is they tell stories about the human side of Chevron. They talk about human energy, which is a source of energy that they say is the most powerful and the most inspiring. What they try to do in this storytelling approach is talk about what Chevron is doing for the environment, what they're doing for wildlife. They also talk about the innovation of the people behind Chevron and the communities that they are affecting. So the idea here is to make this company that looks like a nameless, faceless, big bad company into a human company and to talk about human stories. That's one application. Another application of storytelling. Toyota had a crisis, a big crisis, 5 years ago. They had this unintended acceleration problem, and there was a big lawsuits against them. For a while, Toyota didn't know what to do. They were frozen. They didn't know how to react or deal with this crisis. And they realized that if they told in advertising, no, our cars are good, no, this is false, nobody would believe them. So what did they do? They came up with a creative idea that let us use customers to tell their stories about how much they love Toyota. The campaign had a very nice name. It was called Autobiography. You tell your story. And people, 40 million loyal customers of Toyota, contributed many stories. Thousands of stories were posted talking about how Prius saved my daughter's life, how my car has been in our family for 2 generations, how my car has been driven 300,000 miles. There was a strong outpouring of emotion from the customers. Toyota then took these stories and created a TV campaign out of this. So that's another very important insight. Don't tell your own story. Use customers to tell your story, particularly if you have fans. Companies in China like Xiaomi and OnePlus that I worked with, they are exclusively using fan marketing and advocates to tell the stories. They don't spend any money on advertising. They don't spend any money on media. Their stories are carried by the customers because your customers are the best storytellers. All the beautiful movies that you've seen, all the books that you've seen, unfortunately, there is a formula. There is a formula. It is all engineered. There is a structure. Now, the good news is once you understand the structure, you can come up with good stories and you can analyze stories. So what is the structure of a story? It consists of 3 parts. A story has a beginning. In the beginning, the story describes a base reality. It describes a world. It sets the stage. It provides the context. And usually, the story starts with some conflict, some event, some change, something that creates a problem or a conflict. Then the middle of the story is where the struggle happens. Ups and downs, twists and turns. There's a villain, there are bad people, there's higher stakes, there's further development, plot twists and turns. That's the middle part of the story. By the way, as a company, as a brand, if you're trying to tell the story, this is where you come in. You come in to solve the conflict. You come in to help the people. In the end of the story, we end with a new reality, a resolution, and a moral of the story. So that's the 3 parts of the story. The beginning, the base reality, and the setup, the conflict, tension, ups and downs, twists and turns, and then the new reality. What are some ways to make your stories more powerful? As I was showing you in the Toyota case, it is important to use the voices of the customers. If you're Patagonia, which is a brand that focuses on adventure and the outdoors, let customers tell you about their experiences. They run a blog where customers contribute their travel experiences, their trekking experiences, their camping experiences, their hiking experiences. And it's a very rich community that they have created. And in that process, the brand has the right to have a conversation with its customers. As I was saying earlier also, don't make it B2B, make it H to H, human to human. Make it personal. If you want to tell the story of your company, tell the story of the people in your company. FedEx ran a very successful storytelling campaign 2 years ago. It's called I Am FedEx. The people behind FedEx. Because FedEx is not machinery. FedEx is not aeroplanes. FedEx is not delivery trucks. FedEx is a people company. And telling the stories behind the people that bring your packages to you, that make the whole logistics system work, powerful idea. Show, don't tell. There's a reason I'm using videos in my stories, because video is very powerful. I love what Chekhov had to say. Don't tell me the moon is shining. Show me the glint of light on broken glass. Show me, don't tell me. A picture is worth 1,000 words, and I think a video is worth 1,000 pictures. So this is something we're finding also. Do an experiment yourself. Go to your Facebook account, post text. Then go in and post some pictures. Then go post a video. See how many likes you get. See how many people share your video. You're going to see this. If you want to become more popular, start posting videos. Start sharing videos. Start doing pictures, because people respond better to visual. Fourth, connect with popular culture. As a brand, as a company, you have to understand what are people excited about. What are the current themes in culture? Intel, a technology company, connects with popular culture with a magazine called IQ by Intel. In this IQ by Intel, they are connecting with the creative community, what they call the makers. Makers may be artists, makers may be designers, makers may be architects, makers may be painters. So these are people who use Intel technology to get their creative potential to the next level. So they are really connecting with the popular culture, connecting with what the youth are interested in, what millennials are interested in. And lastly, use a systematic design process. Stories just don't happen. They don't come out of thin air. What you have to do first is to think about the problem you're going to solve. What is the idea? If you think about the problem that Procter & Gamble is trying to solve, it is the problem of how do I make my child into an Olympic athlete? How do I make them successful? That is the idea. And your problem that you're solving needs to connect with a pain point about your customers. It needs to connect with either. There are two ways to connect with your customers. One is to solve a problem. The other is to ignite a passion. Either speak to a passion, like Microsoft was doing in the Azure campaign, or speak to a pain point, like Procter & Gamble was doing. So you have to start with what problem we're going to solve. Next, you have to create the message. This is the creative part. This is the conversion of a creative idea. See, it's one thing to say that my customer insight is that IT professionals like music. It is another to come up with this creative idea of taking data and making it into a symphony. That is where your agencies will help. That's where creative people need to help. That's crafting a message, crafting a story. Then you develop the story using the structure that I just showed you, the steps in the process. Finally, think about how the story will be told and measure the response that you're getting from your customers and evolve the story.
That was really a glimpse into the future. We'll be right back with more Management Live, World Business Forum, Bogota. Here we are back with more Management Live, World Business Forum, Bogota 2016. Now, let's listen to Vijay Govindarajan, who will explain to us why strategy is innovation. He'll give us the clues to create new growth platforms to be able to exploit new market realities.
I put everything an organization does into 3 boxes. Think about all the projects you're executing inside your organization today. And ask yourself, how many of those projects will be in box 1? And box 1 is about manage the present. It's about improve the performance of your current business models the way they are constructed today. How many of the projects you're executing today will be in box 2? And box 2 is about selectively forget the past. And how many of the projects you're executing today will be in box 3? And box 3 is about create the future. Manage the present, box 1. Selectively abandon the past, box 2. And create the future, box 3. And what I find working with organizations is organizations way over focus on box 1. And then they think they are doing strategy. While box 1 is terribly important, strategy is really about box 2 and box 3. And the challenge for organizations in box 3 is, how are you going to create your future in the year 2025? And if you want to create your future in the year 2025, then you have a job to do in box 2. Namely, you have to selectively forget. And let me clarify one thing right away. Strategy for any organization, it includes General Electric, it includes every organization in this room, is about becoming a leader in the year 2025. But strategy is not about what you have to do in the year 2025. Strategy is very much about the projects you're executing in the year 2016 across the 3 boxes so that you intersect with the year 2025. How are you allocating resources today? How is the organization energy focused today across the 3 boxes so that you stay relevant in the next decade? Another word for box 1 is competition for the present. And that's all about efficiency. Another word for box 2, box 3 is competition for the future. That's all about innovation. We know both are important. Therefore, strategy is really about how do you create your future while managing the present.
Well, wasn't that impressive? Now, let's get ready for more. The following speaker will take us to the Bronx. Stephen Ritz is leading a double revolution in education and urban renewal, developing inner-city farms. In this way, giving fresh food to his community and at the same time stimulating extraordinary academic performance. Let's listen to this incredible story.
These children here, and 50% of them are homeless. When they started donating money to earthquake victims and tsunami victims and sending money overseas, we realized that there was something green for everybody. And we gave birth to the Green Bronx Machine. That's right, my own kids in the middle of my own community. We own it. Now, in this age of STEM, where everyone's talking about science, technology, engineering, and math, I want to tell you in my neighborhood, we are cooking with steam. And what does the A stand for? Well, the A stands for art, because everybody needs to get out there and make more art. If you love art, do it. What does the other A stand for? Aspiration, because people need to dream. This is about hope. That's my story, passion, purpose, and hope, getting out there. And the last A stands for advocacy, because I am a voice for the voiceless. And on my shift, all lives matter, all children matter, and I am determined to fight for each and every one of them. But what does it look like in practice? Well, we have a lot of garbage in my neighborhood, so we practice making furniture. We make bow ties. We make all sorts of things. We started mapping out where we live. And ladies and gentlemen, that's a map of our community, and welcome to our block. Que feo, the ugliest block in America. No business, the crime, the prostitution. It's hot in the summer, no stores. My K-12 school is right between there, right up that block. So the students and I, together, we started dreaming. We started drawing, and we started saying, what if? Imagine, what if we had a place to play? What if there was no way for the cars to go back and forth? No more drugs, no more prostitution. What if? And we started registering voters and writing grants and breaking ground. And 2 years later, ladies and gentlemen, this is the new South Bronx. Welcome to my neighborhood. This is my community. And where there was no business, there is now business after business after business. Welcome to the neighborhood. So I'm very much about ABCDs, but my story is about a new ABCDs, asset-based community development, working with people together to grow something greater. And whether you live in this community or not, everybody benefits when we take buildings that look like this and turn them into incredible communities that look like this. And that's when my story started getting crazier, because Disney called me up and came to visit me in the middle of the South Bronx. So pass the plate is cool, but my kids are passing tests. And the amazing thing about Disney is that it taught me one thing, because Disney came to the South Bronx and they got out real quick. They ran away, I'm not gonna lie, but it taught me that children watch so much TV, that TV is raising our kids. And that's when I decided to stop working with just big kids, but really working with little kids and raising the next generation of farmers, kids who are really amazed and interested and involved. And when you start them young like this, you're building good habits on good habits. And the neighborhood that was once known as Fort Apache is now our neighborhood, home, growing something. And without a food stamp or a fingerprint, we are feeding our own community. Happy kids, happy families, behold the glory and bounty that is Bronx County. Somewhere over the rainbow is my new schoolyard, and I ask all of you to come visit me in Osura de Bronx and come visit. You see, for me, I don't want any more athletes, no more little Knicks and little Yankees. I want little mushrooms and little broccolis. I want kids growing up aggregating around food that they know where it comes from, and I want every child in the world to know, whether you live in the beautiful jungle or the farm or in the middle of the concrete jungle, what food is, where it comes from. And for me as a teacher, when Jose pays attention to detail like this, and Omar and Henry can tell me the carrots come from under the ground instead of in a Ziploc bag, someone saying next, I love it. For me, eating across the rainbow is not a bag of candy. It is happy, healthy food. You would not put vinegar in your Mercedes. These are my Porsches, my Ferraris, my Testarossas, and I want my kids eating the best food possible all day long. Happy, healthy kids who are growing to do incredible things. Happy teachers, happy students. We're sending kids home with groceries week after week. And most importantly, we're bringing grandparents to school and parents to school. And when parents and grandparents come to school, we register them for vote. We teach them to read. We teach them to write. I don't need more police. I need more grandparents, because grandma in the South Bronx is pretty strong.
Wow, that was a really energetic presentation. What a story. What an astounding way of generating change. Now, let's get ready to listen to another incredible story. When she was only 12 years old, she suffered a violent attack in which she lost both her legs. Instead of crying over it, she decided to live a life full of adventures. She belongs to the Paralympic ski team, is waiting for her third son, and travels the world inspiring others. Let's meet Irene Villa.
En lugar de víctimas, somos responsables. Responsables de nuestro futuro, de nuestro presente, y como tales, pues sí, señores, hay que tomar decisiones. Dice, ¿qué tomas para ser feliz? Decisiones, ¿no? Pues es verdad, hay que tener un plan de acción, hay que descubrir tu potencial, hay que creer en ti también, y hay que tener esa autoconfianza maravillosa. Hay que tener metas claras y visualizarlas, y alcanzables, por supuesto, no metas inalcanzables que te hundan y te hagan abandonar. Pero es verdad que visualizar todo lo positivo, pensar en positivo también. La gente me dice, tú como eres tan positiva, pues lo ves muy fácil. Bueno, vamos a empezar por la base, por los cimientos. Prueben a hablar solamente en positivo. Decir lo que te gusta, lo que te encanta, en lugar de lo que te desagrada o lo que detestas. Eso ya es un paso para pensar en positivo. Hablar solo de las cosas buenas, de la gente que ayuda, de la gente que significa algo maravilloso en tu vida, no de la gente que te envidia o te odia, sino solamente enfocarte en lo positivo. Ya veréis cómo no es tan difícil ser positivo. Actitud optimista, por supuesto. Porque uno cuando es optimista atrae esas cosas buenas. Porque si eres negativo, al final la profecía autocumplida que decimos los psicólogos. Basta que pienses algo en negativo para que se cumpla, tú mismo lo atraes con tu mente. Crear un hábito, comprometiéndote. Crearlo de verdad. Y agradecer. Yo creo que dar gracias por todo lo que venga a tu vida, tanto bueno como malo, lo bueno para disfrutarlo y lo malo para aprender, es siempre para dar las gracias. Con todo esto, uno consigue lo que se propone. Pero para mí hay algo mucho más importante que conseguir lo que te propones. Y es disfrutar de lo que vas consiguiendo, que a veces se nos olvida, ¿verdad? Por esta vida tan frenética y de resultados y de conseguir cosas, pues se te olvida lo más importante, que es andar ese camino feliz. Y para ser feliz, para mí, por supuesto, la clave es saber que se puede. Y para saber que se puede, ¿qué hay que hacer? Pues tener en cuenta unos valores básicos, que veréis que son muy elementales. Os he puesto una pizarra y unas reglas mnemotécnicas para que no se os olviden, como así me conseguí yo aprobar las 3 carreras con reglas esquemitas, que eso es visual y se te queda. Las 3 A's. Bueno, pues la autoestima. Es que si tú no te quieres, nadie te quiere. Y sin amor, todo cuesta mucho más, el triple. La amistad. Es que todas las penas compartidas son mucho más llevaderas, pero es que las alegrías se multiplican cuando las compartimos con amigos. El trabajo en equipo, las sinergias, es todo mucho más positivo y mejor. Y actividad. Deseo, decisión y disciplina. La determinación, que es vital. Paciencia, prudencia y perseverancia. Porque eso es lo que te da. La constancia es la que hace que las demás virtudes den sus frutos.
Wow, that was so amazing. We should be really grateful for what we have, don't you think? Please don't leave us. We'll be right back with the rest of the Bogota conferences, so see you in a bit. Well, we're coming to the end of the show, but we still have a few more conference presentations to enjoy. Now, let's listen to Martin Lindstrom, who offers a uniquely global overview of branding and marketing. He'll explain how to discover what makes customers tick by identifying the small clues that reveal their underlying motivations. Martin will help us understand the surprising and sometimes counterintuitive truths about what connects us all as humans. Let's dive into it.
Small data is all about creating the hypothesis, that little insight which can make the difference. Big data is all about finding the correlations. And what's interesting is it's when you combine the big data with the small data, it starts to be a beautiful show. The problem today is that we're all in love with big data, but there's a fundamental flaw around that. So small data is really seemingly insignificant behavioral observation that points towards one or more unmet consumer needs. And really, if I should prove that, I just want to ask you guys a question. Be honest now, everyone. How many of you would say that you are fairly rational in everything you do? Yeah, what you say is you are a rational person. Raise your hand, come on. Thank you. I remember you two now. So tell me, if you're sitting at home, watching television, you're using remote control, and the batteries are flat, how many of you are pressing extra hard on the remote control to suck the last battery out? Raise your hand. You're raising your hand again. How can you tell that stuff using big data? There's no way, because we're human beings, and human beings means that we're human. And that's really the foundation. So we started to scan people's brains just to understand the foundation of this. And out of that, we came with some pretty interesting conclusions. Looking at a publication, which is the Journal of Applied Psychology, where we had the percentage forecast based on logic, or big data up here. And here we have the forecast based on instinct and small data. We realized, interestingly enough, that you can't live just with big data. In fact, everything seems to center around the middle. What we learned from the study, one of the most sophisticated studies in the world, was that the most accurate forecasters depend on both logic, which is big data, and intuition, which is small data. Business leaders are in their jobs because of intuition. Intuition is an accumulation of experiences through many years. You may not be able to articulate why. You just feel it somehow. I mean, I spent some time with the founder and the owner of IKEA. I wanted to find out what is his mindset. So I met up with him at his office. He was not there. He was down at his usual place, they said to me, in Stockholm. I said, where is that? He said, down at the cash register. So I went down there. Sure enough, he was sitting down there, checking people out one by one. I said to him during the break, why do you do that? He said, because I can see my customers in the eyes, and I can see what they feel, and I can see exactly what product they want. And that is creating IKEA for me. Instinct cannot be created by looking at reports. Instinct is created by spending time with human beings. And we're afraid of that today.
Wow, that was really interesting. And now we're ready to listen to an expert on creativity, communication, and idea development. Jesus Cochegrus will tell us, among other things, how to create an organizational culture that becomes relevant into the lives of clients and collaborators. Let's listen to Jesus.
Yo no sé quién fue el tipo que inventó la frase y dijo, aquí las cosas se hacen bien ya la primera. ¿No? Y dices, bueno, está muy bien cuando llevas muchos años de entrenamiento, ¿no? Yo espero que mi cardiólogo haga las cosas bien ya la primera y espero que el piloto del avión pues aterrice bien ya la primera, ¿no? Pero el señor ya tiene mucho entrenamiento. Pero cuando nos estamos enfrentando a un nuevo problema en la oficina, cuando estamos enfrentándonos a un nuevo desafío, las cosas no van a salir bien y a la primera. Hay que intentar y de repente equivocarse y buscar una nueva estrategia y no va a funcionar. Y más en el mundo actual. El gran desafío de las empresas en el mundo actual, yo le llamo Homo celularis. Es ese mercado instantáneo, desesperado, que todo lo quiere al momento, que todo lo quiere personalizado. El mundo ha cambiado tremendamente en 8 años. Bueno, también en 8 meses cambia tremendamente. Pero, ¿cómo lo atiendes? Pues solamente probando una y otra estrategia y funciona una cosa y funciona una cosa. Y hay que tener la paciencia para abrazar el error. Una empresa, una compañía que castiga el error está matando cualquier posibilidad de innovación. No deja que las cosas fluyan. Y la pregunta es, oye, ¿por qué exigimos resultados inmediatos? ¿Somos tan desesperados ya? Les voy a poner una analogía sencilla. Imagínense, van al gimnasio, ¿no? Ya que finalmente pierdes el miedo de ir al gimnasio, porque cuando la primera vez que vas a ir al gimnasio piensas que hay puro gorila allá adentro y tú te sientes amenazado. Pero bueno, llegas al gimnasio, haces las pesas y cuando llegas a tu casa y te vas a bañar, ¿qué es lo primero que haces? Te paras en el espejo, inflas el pecho y te ves igual. Y al día siguiente llegas al gimnasio, haces el ejercicio, te paras en el espejo y todos los días te ves y no se nota el cambio. En el mundo corporativo los cambios se notan solo con la constancia, con el trabajo diario y 2 meses después, ahí es cuando se van a notar las cosas. Muchas veces nos pasa, como somos celulares, queremos resultados así, queremos resultados rápidos, instantáneos y el mundo no funciona así. Tiene que haber un proceso de crecimiento, tiene que haber errores y fallas en el proceso y hay que tener un espacio para eso. ¿Quieres cambiar las cosas en tu compañía? Crea un ambiente donde la gente quiera jugar. Variable número 1, ambiente físico. Un ambiente físico agradable saca lo mejor de la gente. Muchas veces, no sé si reconozcan esta imagen, pero muchos nos hemos visto inmiscuidos en esto. Pero ¿qué tienes que hacer? Transforma el ambiente físico de tu compañía. Les voy a hacer una pregunta muy sencilla. ¿En qué empresa creen que la gente dé mejor servicio al cliente? ¿En la foto de la izquierda o en la foto de la derecha? La respuesta es obvia. El trato que tú le des a tu gente es el trato que ellos van a dar al cliente. Y hay compañías que llevan esto al extremo. Es un comedor de Nike, por ejemplo, y es un comedor de Google. Y muchos empresarios me dicen, no, ¿sabes qué? Es que se necesita mucho dinero. Esas empresas tienen mucho dinero y por eso pueden poner comedores así. Y yo les digo, ¿no será que tienen mucho dinero por tener comedores así? Por darle un trato diferente a tu gente. ¿Quieres cambiar las cosas? Número 1, empieza por un cambio en el ambiente físico en la compañía. ¿Cuál es el ambiente de tu división, de tu departamento, de tu compañía? ¿Qué estás comunicando? ¿Qué se siente al entrar a tu empresa, a tus sucursales, al área donde trabaja tu equipo? Primera variable, ambiente físico. Segunda variable, ambiente espiritual. ¿Qué se respira al entrar a tu compañía. Tú entras y se siente la buena vibra o la mala vibra. Les voy a dar un ejemplo. Hay una aerolínea que me encanta. A todos ustedes, me imagino, como empresarios les toca viajar seguido. Entonces yo me subo, me tocan muchos vuelos y de repente me da pena con las sobrecargos, con las aeromosas, porque las pobres dan las instrucciones de seguridad y nadie les pone atención, ¿no? Entonces yo las volteo a ver así como, mira, soy el único tonto que te está poniendo atención. El cinturón, la hebilla No, qué interesante, jamás lo hubiera imaginado. Pero bueno, hay una aerolínea que, consciente de esa situación, en lugar de presentar las instrucciones de seguridad aburridas, como las hacen la mayoría de los vuelos, las presenta así. Échenle un vistazo, por favor. Ahí lo vamos a dejar. Por favor, mantengan su aquellito en la silla hasta que acabe la conferencia. Bueno, esta aerolínea se llama Virgin y todos estamos desesperados por mañana escuchar a Richard Branson, ¿no? Y por algo la compañía es lo que es, por el ambiente que siembra en su gente. La pregunta es, ¿qué estás fomentando? No solo comunicando entre tu gente. Las empresas cambian por un ambiente, es un ecosistema y el ambiente puede sacar lo mejor o lo peor de la gente. Yo les aseguro que una persona contenta es más productiva, da mejor servicio y genera mucho más ideas que una persona frustrada, que una persona que no quiere estar ahí. Hay que transformar los ambientes, hay que darle a la gente un mundo al que quiera pertenecer. Convierte tu compañía en un mundo donde la gente quiera jugar, que diga, yo me siento parte de esto.
That was really phenomenal information. Now, last but not least, we're ready to listen to Richard Branson. In 1970, he started Virgin as a mail-order record retailer. Today, there are more than 100 Virgin companies worldwide, employing approximately 60,000 people in over 50 countries. That's really something, isn't it? Get comfortable to listen to the secrets of this incredible speaker.
What would you say if you had to define your principal role today as the founder of the Virgin Group, this massive organization, hundreds of brands? What is your role today? What do you actually do?
My role is quite similar to the role I played when I was 21 years old or 18 years old. I mean, fortunately, I learned the art of delegation very early on. And if you're going to be a serial entrepreneur, you have to learn the art of delegation. And so, what I would do would be, start a business, throw myself into it, learn all about it, but then find somebody else to run it, and then go back to my houseboat where I was living, and give myself time to think. And that meant that the day-to-day running of the business, people always want to see the top people in the building. If you're not in the building and you've got somebody else there, you don't get bogged down with the minutiae. And so instead of living on a houseboat, I live on an island. So I've gone up in the world a bit. But so I suppose my time is spent on the business side on starting new ventures, firefighting when something is going wrong with a venture that we've already started, and putting Virgin on the map on a global basis. I mean, we talk about the weight of the size of our company, and then I suppose about actually 80% of my time is spent more on not-for-profit ventures. People have been generous enough to pay to come and see me today. 100% of that money will go to good causes, and so finding time for things like this is important, and also to share the knowledge that maybe I've learned over 50 years of business.
Yeah, of course. You mentioned that you do a lot of delegating, and that obviously requires a lot of good judgment in terms of the people that you hire to put in charge of these businesses. What do you look for in the people who you hire to run your businesses?
We look for people who love people. We look for people who genuinely care about people. We look for people who can bring out the best in people. I mean, a company is just a group of people. If you have a leader that is praising and not criticizing, that is inspiring their workforce, is leading by example, is out and about and meeting everybody and not stuck in a room, is listening. I mean, you know, a lot of leaders are not good at listening, so we want leaders that, you know, are listening all the time and then writing down what they hear from their staff and from their customers. And I think, you know, if you can bottle that up, you can have a great company. If you bring somebody in who isn't like that, you can destroy a company very quickly. I mean, at the moment you lose the morale of a company, it's very difficult to rebuild it again. You know, when I started our airline 30 years ago, I remember, you know, sitting on the plane thinking, this is just fantastic. The staff are loving it. Everything's right. It's just fun. This is wonderful. But what's going to happen in 30 years' time? Well, you know, I mean, when people are a bit older, and the exciting thing is that 30 years on, we've still got that, you know, the same excitement that we had 30 years ago, and the same passion from the staff. So I think, you know, as long as you look after people properly, you can keep that enthusiasm, you know, for decades without losing it.
Well, thanks for joining us today on Management Live, World Business Forum, Bogota 2016. We hope you've learned and enjoyed it as much as we have. See you next time.